So today, a warm welcome, bienvenidos, to Marcos Jeffers, a fifth-generation cattle rancher living in northwestern Chihuahua, Mexico. His father first started holistic plant grazing in 1986 at the family ranch, where it was practiced successfully until 2011. And this is when Marcos and his dad decided to start their own cattle company. They are practicing an intensive grazing program with a holistic plan. And since 2016, so in just 7 years, they have been able to increase the carrying capacity of the land over 3 times by taking care of the soil through regenerative practices. So I personally can't wait to hear all about how these amazing results were achieved from Marcos himself. Thank you so much. Muchas gracias, Marcos, for sharing your soil story with us today.
Thank you for having me. Okay, nice to meet everyone. My name is Marcos Jeffers. We have a cattle ranch here in northwestern Chihuahua, a semi-arid climate. Our annual rainfall is anywhere from 15 to 18 inches a year. The past years we've had less than that. We were in severe drought conditions the past 4 or 5 years. This year the drought finally broke, and I'm looking forward to share our operations with you guys. I guess I'll give a background of the ranch first, and then we'll go from there. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and interrupt me. I promise you I won't remember any of the questions, so go ahead and interrupt me when you can. So I first started running the ranch when I graduated high school in 2016. I was never very good at school, so I graduated high school, and I didn't really want to go to college. It wasn't my thing, so I started. My dad gave me the opportunity to start running the ranch. So when I first started, we had a holistic, we still have a holistic management approach. We still use anything that has to do with HMI, but we kind of went, we modified our practices to what best suited us. So when we first started, we separated from the family ranch. That's why in 2011 we took the decision to separate from the family ranch and start our own cattle company. And we honestly didn't have very much land compared to the family ranch, and we had too many cows for the amount of acreage that we had. So it was either adapt or die. And the way we needed to be a lot more productive in the sense of growing forage. When we first started with the intensive grazing, we were running from 8 to 12 hectares per cow per year. And within 4 years we got it down to well, this is my 7th year, so this year we're down to 2.9 hectares per cow per year. So highly productive. And when we first started, we didn't really have the money to put a lot of infrastructure into our ranch, so we made do with what we had. We started with portable electric fence and went from there. The ranch and its total acreage, it's 2,500 hectares, which is roughly about 6,900 acres. And on those 6,900 acres, we're running 560 animal units. And those animal units, we don't give any food. It's 100%. We graze year round, basically. if there's any questions, go ahead.
Not yet, so just keep going.
Okay. And when we started to do the whole process, I mean, it was a trial by error, basically. We knew what we were doing, but we just needed to modify our plan to have a more intensive approach towards the grazing aspect. And from there, we noticed it was a lot more productive. Our business was a lot more productive. I'm gonna start sharing the content. There's a few pictures here of when we started. The top picture was taken in about 1995. The bottom picture was taken in 2018. So that was 20 something years of practice. We've reclaimed well, we've reclaimed a lot of the ranch that wasn't used before. As far as our paddocks and the way we've subdivided the ranch, we've subdivided the ranch in over 500 different paddocks. Every paddock's portable. We manage one herd in different times a year. Most of the time, it's usually two herds, which is the bull herd and then the cow herd. And once we wean, then it will be three different herds. Your weanlings, and then the cow herd and bull herd. That picture there is when we were using higher density. We run about 100 cows per hectare of density year round. As far as management wise, a lot of people think it's difficult to run one herd and give them all water, but we've been doing it for 7 years, and I don't see it difficult. Like I say, we have 560 cows, and I only have one employee plus me, and I mean, we make it work. Every single paddock is portable. We base our paddocks off of a program that's called Pasture Map, which lets us keep track of our rest days. We rest from around 400 to 425 days every grazing season. So each paddock only really has 24 hours of use in 420 days. The reason for the 420 days is to give the grass itself and the soil at least one growing period every 420 days, since our growing period is basically 60 days out of the year. So there's a few paddocks that will graze when it's growing, and then the following year they won't be grazed until the fall. So say it's growing, it finished growing in September, those paddocks we grazed in September won't be touched until the following November or December. So it gives us a good 90 days of reserve. That way, of a big drought hits, we at least have 90 days worth of reserve grass left on the ranch, and we won't be in a hurry. And I mean, all of that has to do with the holistic planned approach, the holistic planned grazing approach we take into our ranch. We've been able to increase our carrying capacity just by increasing the amount of grass we have per square meter. And we run all the herd together, so we only use one water trough in the entire 6,900 acres. That's the water trough there. This picture here was taken this summer before the monsoon season hit, and it's helped a lot with having enough grass for the cattle year round, and just the stress itself of having a drought is non-existent. We've also been working with the Rocky Mountain Bird Conservancy. We're partners in taking care of the migratory bird species that comes from Canada that survives on short grass prairies. So we've been working with them for the past 3 years. It's another benefit of managing the way we do. The amount of of different species we have here at the ranch, just because of our management has increased in the past 3 years. So I mean, there's benefits all the way around. Any questions, please let me know. I'm running out of words here.
Type your questions in the chat, maybe, if you like, or if you'd like to speak up, feel free. Yes, go ahead, Anne.
Yeah, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about the water system. Do you have it buried? You got your portable tank, but I assume you're coupling that into some risers, or are you trucking it, or how are you doing that?
Yes, ma'am. We have a pipeline that goes throughout the entire ranch. So it's we have a well here at the headquarters. We pump the water out of the well into some reservoir tanks that are in the highest part of the ranch. So we gravity feed to every single paddock, and we connect the water trough into our hydrants that are on our main water line. And once having those connected, we have a kilometer of pipe we basically drag around the entire ranch to have water in every single paddock. And that way the body condition of our cattle hardly ever goes down, since they have, basically it's a mobile corral. Our paddocks are 5 hectares each, roughly about 12 acres. And we move once a day, and we on the pipeline at the lowest part of our ranch, we have up to 250 pounds of pressure in the 2-inch pipeline, and it's all poly pipe. When we put it in, we put it in for one purpose, for it to last as long as possible.
And so was that pipe then put in? When was that put in?
That part of it was put in roughly about a good 10 years ago. And then every year we put in around 2 kilometers, which is about 3 or 4 miles of pipe. So every year we're putting some money into the ranch.
And so that's, you're finding that obviously the increased carrying capacity is more than adequately got return on investment on that 2 kilometers of pipe each year.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as we can use 100% of the ranch we have. We don't, out of the 6,900 acres we have, we use 100% of it.
Thanks, Anne. And if you're done with the PowerPoint, Marcus, you might just want to stop sharing, because there's a couple of questions in the chat, so we could just move on to conversation. Thank you. So I see a question by Daniel. Daniel, do you want to unmute and ask your question?
Okay, the one about the water tank was answered, but with daily moves, aren't the cows lined up at the fence a couple hours before, just waiting to be moved?
The cattle itself is on a strict regimen. I'd say we move religiously at 7 o'clock in the morning every single morning. What we do have is automatic gates that we set up on our poly wire. So we set them up the day before or sometime the day before. So at 7 o'clock in the morning, every single morning, they hear that gate open and it beeps for them. And by now, I mean, we've been doing it for 6 years, so they're well trained to the sound of the gate. Once that gate opens, the cows move on their own, which helps a lot, especially since we're a cow-calf producers. It helps a lot. It helps the cows not lose their calves. So the cows move on their own, and everything moves on their own. we just get there later that day to build the next paddock for the next day, move our water trough, check the cattle, make sure everything's okay. Take down our fences we need to take down, pick up our automatic gate and set it for the next day. The one thing we have found is if we're consistent with the schedule of the cows, it's just like having a dairy. I mean, dairy cattle get milked certain times a day, so many times a day. Just the same thing with our grazing. And we make our paddocks big enough so they won't run out of food by the following morning. And it's just measuring the amount of forage you actually have for the amount of cows you have.
You make it sound all very easy, Marcos, but it's super fascinating. I'm wondering, I have actually lined up your Instagram page. I could share that, which has some of the close-ups of the watering trough and also the automatic gate, which I think is just genius innovations that really make this kind of management possible and easier. And if you'd like, I could try to share that.
Please, please, it would be of great help.
Let's see. Can you all see that? Okay. So if I click on this, hopefully it will work. So this, and you feel free to narrate what we're seeing, Marcos, because this is the details from the watering trough, right?
Yeah, that's the watering trough there. It has a hydraulic jack on the back end of it. The hydraulic jack is to level out the water trough. A lot of our land is super level, but a lot of it isn't. So basically we put the jack there to level it out a good 5-6 inches on either end. That's why the jack is there. And it, as long as you have a level trough, I mean, your float valve is going to close. And then on the inside of that jack, you can see a plate. Basically, the jack is welded to the plate, so it slides up and down. It'll slide up and down, and we can lower it all the way to the ground to let the calves drink water, or raise it up when we're moving it.
This is something you fabricated?
Yes, everything, basically everything we have, we fabricate here at the ranch. There's very few things. There's very few things that we do buy, but everything's fabricated.
It's really cool.
There's the water trough. I mean, it's not a very big water trough for 500 cows, but we have enough flow at the end of the pipe to maintain 500 cows just with that one trough. I think it measures around about 20 feet. It's 20 feet by about 2 feet wide, something like that. So it's not a very big trough. It's not a very big trough, but it gets the job done.
Really cool. And there was also a picture of the gate, which is, I think, here. Okay. This is a little video. I hope it's moving for you guys.
I don't know if you guys can see, there's a little black box on the bottom right side of your screen. That's called a bat latch. Those are one of the very few things I have bought in and not made on my own. And when I first bought it, it's not used for what I'm using it for. But we, being a good rancher, we found another purpose for it. Those bat latches are usually used for permanent gates. They use them a lot in dairies and things like that when they want to open the paddock. But that requires having two corners. And basically what we did there is inverted it and had on the top end of that pole, there's a pulley and inside that pole there's a weight. So with gravity, we would hook up the bat latch, set the time up, and then it would release. And with gravity, that weight would fall down and pick up our wire.
Genius. This is a little close up, I guess. This is you installing it.
Yeah, I'm setting it up there. As you can see, the poly wires on one end, and that poly wire basically we have a clamp that hooks onto the handle, and we just hook it on. And I mean, it takes you not even 2 seconds to set it up.
That's really cool. And it makes a sound, maybe. Is there like a bell?
It rings. It rings. We had a bell on it at that time, which it helped also. But the cows usually by 7 o'clock in the morning, they're ready to move.
So cool. It's really great. Oh, but actually this one is maybe interesting to show, because this is your ranch and this is the pasture map that you mentioned, the software that you use, right, to determine
Yes.
the pastures.
Those are the pastures. It's changed a lot as it was back then. There's a few paddocks that we've redrawn, which is the beauty of having portable fences. We've honestly changed the entire map on the ranch almost 6 times. So the first year we did it, we took notes on what paddocks needed to be changed and why, and we've gotten to the point now where I like the way the ranch is set up now, so I can start putting permanent fences in. But yeah, that's the program we use. Pasture map, it helps us draw out the pastures. It also has a GPS in it, so when you're at the ranch, it's an app, so you open up your phone at the ranch and it tells you exactly where you are. So what we do is, with the GPS that the app has, that's how we draw out our fences. So we get to every single corner and we throw a portable wire at every single corner, which basically we have a virtual ranch, 100% virtual ranch. And most people come to the ranch and there's not a single fence that you can see, but we do set up over 500 paddocks a year.
It's amazing. And we hear all the time that you can't do movable or fences, or it's hard, and so you're just really proving it wrong, because this is a very dry landscape, even compared to New Mexico, and you're doing it.
Well, a lot of people think it's hard because most people usually set up a paddock for 4 or 5 days. I found it was easier to set up a smaller paddock every single day. I mean, you're going to set up a paddock anyway for 5 days, which is 5 times as much more work. And if you set up a smaller paddock, well, it's just for 1 day, so it's a smaller paddock. The smaller the paddock, less work it is. And a lot of people think I'm crazy, but we've seen a big difference from moving once a day to moving it every 5 days, like we did before.
Yeah. Super smart. Well, I'm going to scroll up a little bit, and then we're going to go back to some more questions. But if you see something you'd like to share, maybe just stop me. I had a couple more notes, but if you see something else I should show from the Instagram page, let me know. I really recommend subscribing to your Instagram feed, because it's super fascinating. And you have a lot of followers, a lot of fans out there.
I've gotten lazy the past few months, and I haven't been able to upload a few things. If you want to go up to that one with a yellow tractor, that's the way we I think we passed it.
Okay, let me go back. Yellow tractor. This one? With the pipes?
Yeah, that one there with the pipe.
Okay.
Uh,
What's going on?
We use that caterpillar to bury the pipe. Basically, on the end, when you buy pipe, it comes in a big roll. So basically, what we did was fabricated that roll so it would roll behind the reaper, and we'd have like just like a guide for the pipe. So when the tractor would move, the reaper would make the hole, and it unwind into the hole. And we set up about 4 kilometers in 2 days, buried pipe, and it's buried about almost a foot deep. But super easy. I mean, it's super easy to use it, and it's super easy. I think that's cool, but
Yeah, it's super cool. I think everybody's just watching in amazement. Let's see if there's more. And it goes downhill here. Wow.
and as you can see, the terrain's not completely flat. Most of it is, but a lot of it isn't.
You're using this pipe wheel for other things now too. I do remember a posting from not
Yes,
that long ago. Let me
it
actually
all
scroll
depends
up.
if I have the tractor or not. If I have the tractor, I'll put it on the tractor. But there was some pipe that the tractor couldn't where we wanted the pipe. The tractor couldn't go where we wanted it, so we unwound it. That's how we were unwinding it. We unwound it first and pulled it with the 4-wheeler and set the pipe where we wanted it, and then we went back and put our couplings in.
So there it is, repurposed. And you move cattle on horseback or with those off-road vehicles, both? What, you have a motorcycle too, right?
Well, we don't usually move cattle now. I mean, they move once a day, but they move on their own. And whenever we do work cattle, we have portable panels. We don't have working pen. Well, we have working pens, but they're all portable. So we set up when we need to work cattle, we set up the pens where the cattle is, so we don't really hurt anything anywhere.
Right. So it's just for getting around, basically.
For getting around, setting up your fences, and we found it's a lot cheaper to maintain a 4-wheeler than it is to maintain a horse. Honestly, four-wheeler is basically gasoline. And there's another portable water pump we use.
And
Isabel, there were a few questions in the chat.
Yeah, we'll stop you in a minute just to show some of the awesome footage.
It's incredible.
And I think this one is cool because you can see where it was grazed and then the other side of the fence isn't. So it's pretty remarkable difference.
Yeah, we usually try to take at least a good 80 to 90% of the grass. So it would be more like a total grazing type of situation. Those there are corners. They're made out of PVC. The reason we made them out of PVC is so we can carry them on our 4-wheeler. And sometimes we need to make a corner where we don't have a permanent post set. So we use those made out of PVC. What it is a right triangle. Basically, in that triangle, there's a piece of rope that connects all 3 pieces, and then we stick a post through the right side, and it keeps it standing up, and we can tie it, and I mean they work great.
Awesome. Yeah, I think those were the things I had earmarked. Love this one. Last one, I promise. It's just amazing to see all this grass at a time of drought. Really cool.
Yeah, that was impressive. That there was in May. I think it says there on the bottom of the post, but that was the amount of grass we had in the middle of the drought. And you're talking there, we hadn't had a substantial rainfall since September. So all that tells you is your roots are working, your soil's working. I'm not the most technical person. I'm not the most scientific person to get into to microorganisms and all the rigmarole, but when I see that green grass after at least 180 days without rainfall, it's something else.
And seeing is believing, right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll stop sharing and we'll get to some of the questions. And yeah, Rob, if you want to take over.
Well, just again, incredible job, Marcos, and all your team. We're so impressed and appreciative of the ingenuity and the resourcefulness and the commitment that you've shown. And in terms of the questions, I know James and Joyce Skeet had a question. Did you want to unmute and ask?
Yeah, this is Joyce. Hi, thanks for all the information. Yeah, he just answered it. I was asking about what percentage of the grasses they graze. So I heard 80, 90, kind of almost a total. So cool. That's what we're finding out too. So with some of the people we're talking to a little bit that we've been doing, that works really well, that amount.
Part of the reason why we do it also is we try to leave a good amount of organic matter left on the topsoil just so it won't be bare. But here we have a lot of wind. The wind basically from January till April, it's windy every single day, and you're talking about 40 to 50 mile an hour winds. So anything I do leave, the wind basically takes it. So I find it better to have the cows eat it than the wind take it.
Daniel, you had your hand up. Did you want to finish your question?
And Mr. Monaco's, you've grazed it pretty hard. It's been a pretty intense graze as far as taking most of the grass there, but of course that's only one day out of 420 or whatever. Is that correct? So it's a pretty intense grazing episode.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct. I mean, it's a 24-hour use and 1 day of use in 420 days. So yes, I do leave the paddocks pretty bare, but there's also a lot of manure. There's a lot of nutrients put back into the ground, and basically we're leaving that grass ready to work. We're leaving it so once it catches a little bit of humidity, it won't be shaded. So your process of photosynthesis will start right away. And that doesn't really even matter either, since we graze when it's green, we graze green grass with the old grass basically year round, or when it's growing.
So Stephen Williams had a question. If you want to unmute, Stephen.
Yes, Marcos, I know of Bill Jeffers from Holbrook, Arizona. I'm assuming he's probably a relative of yours. But
yes, sir, he is.
That's by way of introduction. But my question was, do you measure your soil carbon? And you might have answered that previously when you said you're really not technical and looking at the microbiology. So I'll ask you another question in terms of from when you started to where you are now. What kind of changes have you seen in your vegetative composition? The types of grasses you've got? Any cool season grasses to go with the warm season?
Yes, last year we started seeing a lot. We started seeing two different varieties of cooler season grasses. We've counted up to, I think it's up to like 25 different types of perennial species we have here at the ranch, and annual species. We have all types, but mostly it's good perennial grasses. We started seeing a lot of, here they call it Punta Blanca. The scientific name is something California. I can't remember the scientific name, but it was almost extinct here in the region. But, and all that grass you guys saw, there's 0% of it was introduced. Basically what we're doing is stimulating the seed bank that we already had. But yeah, we've seen tremendous change in the type of forage and in the amount of forage.
Does that answer your question, Stephen?
Yes, it does. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. And how about Brian Naughton? Do you want to unmute and ask your question?
Yeah, thanks, Marcos. That was really, really interesting. Especially enjoyed those pictures and all the farm tools that you've made. I was curious if you've noticed a change in the sort of carrying capacity of your ranch year to year as rainfall changes. Like, is the biomass and water storage decreasing the amount of variability?
Well, more of what has increased is the amount of infiltration of the actual rain we get. So a lot of people here always ask, "Oh, how much rain did you get?" Well, I like to think of it as all of it. Like we pretty much got all of it. We have old dirt tanks that after a 2-3 inch rainfall event won't even get water. So I'd like to think that we have those roots working, and they're sucking water into the ground. So I don't know if this answers your question. Like I said, I'm not very scientific, so but we've seen the amount of erosion decrease by, I don't know by how much, but it's decreased.
Maybe I can tag on to that question. I think what most ranchers do when rainfall goes down, when the drought, so in reaction to the drought, is to destock. And if I understand Brian correctly, that might have been what he was wondering about, if that's something that you do as well.
We do destock, but we do it in a different way than most people do. What we do is destock in animal units, not in amount of animals. So what we do is, when there's a big drought like we had in 2020 and 2021, you're talking, we had 4 inches of rain in 400 days. So it was a heavy drought. And what we did was we preg checked, got rid of older open cows, but we kept all our heifers that year. We keep all our heifers every year. So yes, we did decrease the animal units on the ranch, but we increased the amount of animals by almost 100 head.
What markets are you selling into?
What was that?
What market are you selling into? How are you moving your cull cows? What are you doing with your steers, that kind of thing?
Since we keep all our heifers, they stay as replacements here at the ranch. Our steer calves get exported into the U.S. and then any open cows go to the national market here in Mexico, as well as bulls.
So I was just going to say, it's such an important presentation, Marcos. What you've been doing there is outstanding. And I was hoping, you know, we have a good group right on here, and we're going to share it on our website at nmhealthysoil.org, of course, over in time in perpetuity. But it would be great to get this out further. I was wondering if it would be okay to share it with the New Mexico State Land Lessees and some others. It just seems so important what you're doing.
Sure, I don't have any problem with it. As long as the word gets out, that's what I'm about. I mean, it's it's time for cattlemen to change their chip. It's worked for me. It's worked for me, and I see cattlemen here around the area that don't have any type of management. I'm not saying do what I do. I do it because I can do it, and I live here at the ranch. Most cattlemen don't live at the ranch, but as long as you have some sort of management, a planned grazing, I think it'll benefit your business.
So Isabel, and anyone else on the Zoom, if there's other questions, those are the ones that were in the chat, but did you want to follow up with anything, Isabel? I was just so delighted to witness this presentation, and I'm very grateful for your time and all your great ideas.
Yes, absolutely. I could show a couple more sumptuous drone shots, which is honestly how we met. Marcos was kind enough to let us use some of his drone footage of his ranch for some of our videos, and I could share some of those because they're pretty impressive, and you see also the contrast to neighboring ranches. So why don't I just do a little flyover here for the benefit of us all? I think these are just from above. And Marcos, what are we looking at here actually with that green? Yeah.
That green patch there is grass. I don't know if you guys can see the black dots on the other side. That's the herd of cattle. That green patch of grass is where that next move is for the next day. So basically they were coming from the other part. There's a video. I'll give you more of that's the herd of cattle. And then where that green patch is the next paddock for the next day.
So they haven't gotten to that one yet, right? So
no, not yet.
Ungrazed.
Another thing is when in the summer, what we used to do is give them a lot bigger spaces because they were having calves, or there was basically not to hurt the grass itself. We found out that it was better to keep them exactly the same in the same area as they were the entire year. As well, you have a lot more grass when it's growing, but keeping them in the same area and not giving them bigger paddocks, because if you keep them in smaller paddocks when they're calving, I mean, a newborn calf might walk 100 meters. So our paddocks are usually 500 meters long by 100 meters. So it was a lot easier for me to keep all the cows together, especially this calving season. And we didn't, I mean, our losses went down, especially by predators, because we kept them together.
Fascinating. Let's see, there was one picture that was.
How long does it take you to set up a paddock?
When it's completely flat, it'll take me about 8 minutes for a 12-acre paddock, and that's doing it on a 4-wheeler. When it's when it's not level, and it has when the terrain's not level, it'll take me half an hour.
And this
that
one
there is
the neighbor, right?
yeah. that's the neighboring piece.
It was so incredible, right? Look at this grass here and then across the fence. It's just bare ground.
And right there, what's happening is the amount of fungus you actually have in the soil. They're on their side of the fence. You can see the brush and the here they call them malezas, stuff you don't want. And that's happening just because of the composition of the soil. On our end, we have a more fungal, more fungus in our soil, and on their end, it's probably a lot sandier.
And that is achieved through grazing and not any like mechanical intervention. You didn't.
No, that's
remove a bunch of factors, or-
100% grazing. That's all it is.
Awesome.
And I know we're rounding down to the finish line here, but thank you so much for your time. I was just wondering to know if you have any closing statement you'd like to make, Marcos.
I think there was one more question. I think if you want, I'll ask. I don't know where the questions are here, but
If anyone has the last question, jump in while we got the chance. It seems like your financial inputs are kept to a minimum.
yeah, that has a lot to do with it, the way we run it also. As a ex-student of ranching for profit, you learn right away what you're doing wrong in the school. So basically our input cost to raise a cow calf pair, you're talking anywhere from like $70 to $80. And that calf, we sell it from anywhere to around $780 to $890. So it's highly profitable. You're talking about $700 of profit per head. So there, a lot of people, as most ranchers do, they always want to know what your pregnancy rates are and how productive your cow herd is, but they never measure how productive their grassland is, and it goes hand by hand. So I think it's funny when they ask me, what's your pregnancy rate? Well, why does that matter if I'm running almost 4 times as much cattle than you are on this much acreage? So the way we measure profit is by kilos per hectare that we produce. So you're talking, we produce about 60 kilos per hectare, which is roughly around $120 per hectare. So yeah, that question of what's your pregnancy rates? Well, yeah, they're low. I mean, I'm not saying I'm a good cattleman, but I'm pretty good at growing grass. So it goes, I mean, it goes hand by hand, having a good grassland and a good fertility rate.
Fantastic. Isabel, did you want some closing comment?
No, I just want to say many, many thanks. Muchas gracias again, Marcos, and really fascinating to learn a little bit more about what you do. There's some thank yous in the chat. Thanks for joining us today. Really great.
Yeah, it's outstanding and extraordinary.
Thank you for having me.